In a so-called free state, officials and stakeholders concoct solutions to problems often created by other bureaucrats and with little regard for infringements on the people. These stories are born at the apex of freedom and entrepreneurship. We foolishly advocate for the taxpayer. Brian's Beat presents Freedom Fools.
What an excellent day to be outside. Enjoy the sunshine. Get that vitamin D. And don't forget to strap us along on your phone. Just download the WBSM app. We sound good, crystal clear, and in stereo. Hour 3 of Freedom Fools. I'm the head fool here. For the sake of it, I guess, not to rub the salt into anybody's wound, but I was labeled a liberal by a caller during hour number 1 based on the fact, or at least from what I could ascertain, maybe you know better from him, that I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. And I'm not. Nor do I anticipate myself going down that road. I will say this. Some of the moves that the Supreme Court has given their stamp of approval to, I do agree with. But anybody who knows me and has heard me for any length of time heard me espousing these views long before Donald Trump was a presidential candidate. I have been an advocate for small government for decades, back when Donald was an apprentice. That stated, there are some major cuts that are coming that are going to hit us here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. One will be for Medicaid. Medicaid is state-sponsored medical care, health care. Usually goes to people that are poor or working poor. That's how you qualify. One of the reasons, we talked about gentrification in housing over the last hour. I believe, while I can't call it gentrification, I want to, but I don't know that there's another class of people that are actually moving in to take our health care and displacing us. But my point to it all is the fact that health care costs are rising through the roof. And I believe the major reason that they have been allowed to do this, and it's the same thing with college education, is that the government is giving its blessing, its support behind these schools and these medical institutions. Since I was talking about health first, I want to go down that particular road. There are major cuts coming to Medicaid. The state takes that money to offset the cost of running mass health here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. With that money not coming in, and I don't have a fixed figure, I don't think Maura Healey, I don't think Mike Rodericks, the people that run the finances for the state. I don't think the Secretary of Administration and Finance, I don't think they know exactly how much money will not be coming from the federal government. But there's going to be a sizable chunk. Do you want Bacon Hill lawmakers to come up with some type of bill, craft a bill that says whatever the figure is, I'm just going to make up a figure. Let's say that figure is $500 million. Do you want Bacon Hill lawmakers to use our tax dollars here in the Commonwealth to fund that plan, to make up that difference, that $500,000 difference? Or should we think about scrapping the program? One of the best things, at least in my mind, one of the best things that's going to happen with these Trumps from the federal government, from the Trump administration, and hopefully Congress codifies these deals, is that it gives more power to the states and to the people within the states, as the 10th Amendment to the Constitution so states. While I really don't want to have a state-run healthcare system, we're pretty damn close to it right now. And it begs the question, if there were a ballot question for the state to come up with a plan where there's state health care, I know we have it, but I mean, it's going to be mandated. It's going to be funded by our tax dollars. Is that okay with you? Would you vote for it? 508-996-0500. There are going to be major cuts, courtesy of the federal government, when it comes to education. We already know, I believe, $108 million frozen right now, courtesy of Linda McMahon and company. Let's just start with the 108. I do believe there will be more cuts coming to education. Certainly, with the Supreme Court saying that the Trump administration can keep on moving with firing federal employees in the Department of Education. Do you want the state to pick up that tab? Once again, it allows the state and hopefully families to craft as good, if not a better, educational system. Here's the one thing that I definitely want. Since the federal government wants out of Medicaid and they want out of education, whatever amount of money that my tax dollars and your tax dollars are going to the federal government to fund education and health care, or I should say Medicaid, I want that money returned. I want the money returned to the taxpayers so we can decide what to do. Now, if we could get that money back, and I'm going to put a big capital I and a big capital F for if we could get that money back, now we can make a much more informed decision on whether we want to have that money spent toward health, as in here in the Commonwealth, health care, or if we want that money to be spent on education. We've got a millionaire's tax that's supposed to be funding education, but still it's not enough. And my guess is, even though the millionaires aren't leaving right now, when more push comes to shove, when that education bill, when that roads bill keeps on escalating, they're going to say, wait a minute, we got to get out. And they're going to pack up their bags and they're going to leave. So there's a lot to the question, but in a nutshell, as the federal government stops supporting health care, stops supporting education. Do you want the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to pick up that tab? Read that as in that's going to be more tax dollars for the me's and you's. The other question, maybe the larger looming question to help answer the question that I just asked, would be, since the federal government is making these cuts, and I applaud the cuts, don't you believe that the taxpayer should reap that benefit because somewhere down the road, your state or your local community is going to say, well, wait a minute, you're getting that money back. We want this program, and let them go forward. Or, more to the point, how about a ballot question? Not necessarily a ballot question to return the money, because that won't work. But a ballot question to determine, do you want the health care? Do you want state-run health care? And all the trappings that go with it. Trappings like, okay, if it's state-run health care, then your doctors are going to be state employees. Your nurses are going to be state employees. The candy stripers, state employees. Those that answer the phone at the reception booth. Those that ask you, last four numbers of your phone number are da, 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 da. They're all going to be government employees. We already know that folks that work in education, they're already the majority, 90 some odd percent. They're already government workers. Do you want to balloon state government since the federal government is stepping aside? But more importantly, at least to me, one of the things I'll be fighting for is give us our money back. If you're not paying for it, and I think that's the first thing that we need to find out. How much of my federal tax dollars are going into education? I want to know how much of my federal tax dollars are going into Medicaid, not Medicare, Medicaid. I want to know. And I want that money back, because whatever it is that I'm paying for Medicaid, I could turn around and use toward my own health care. Whatever it is that I'm paying toward education, I could help better educate my grandchildren when they come along, or whatever the case may be. That's my thinking. But you know, and I know, that as much as Donald Trump is talking about tax cuts, he's not talking about giving us our money back. He's transferring money from the Department of Health and Human Services, from the Department of Education to the Department of Defense, to the State Department, to Homeland Security. I don't think my money should just be transferred nilly-willy. With our troops on the border, we don't need more Homeland Security. I don't think that we need to beef up the State Department any more than it's been beefed up. Same thing with the CIA. Can't you see that we could use a lot of cuts? Now, I know that some Defense Department cuts are going to affect companies like Raytheon and Boeing, United Technologies, many companies. But just because we have probably the largest military in the world, what good is if it, we're here. We've got a natural protection in two oceans. We've got two countries to the north and south of us that really have no intention of invading us. If it comes down to nuclear, that's an entirely different ballgame. So do we really need to have hundreds of military bases in Africa, in the so-called Middle East, in Europe, and in Asia? Is it necessary? 508-996-0500. This is Freedom Fools on WBSM.
Power to the people. Power to the people.
My measure is really simple. I got a bunch of kids. Can they afford houses with full-time jobs at like 27, 28? And the answer is no way. And the answer is that 35-year-olds with really good jobs can't afford a house unless they stretch and go deep into debt.
You know, the more I listen to Tucker Carlson, the more I think, boy, you are right on point. And it's true. How many people do you know in their mid-20s to mid-30s can go out and buy a house right now? How many? They can't, because the so-called American dream of home ownership simply is not attainable anymore. Remember how it used to be? You were able to go out and buy a house, even in the city of New Bedford, even the city of Fall River. It didn't take much. It was a lot easier. Houses weren't going for $600, $700, $1.4 million. A house on Tucker Lane in Dartmouth sold for the other day. Not that the folks didn't make it look nice and whatnot. $1.4 million. Yeah, it is an above average home. And I would have to say, if somebody is willing to pay that amount of money, then it's worth that amount of money. But in my mind, it really isn't. Now, what's going to happen? That house, which is on it's on the little end part of Tucker Lane. I don't know if you're familiar, but if you're on Slocum Road and you turn left or right onto Colonial goes around and then it eventually kind of hooks to the right and it becomes Tucker Lane. But if you go down to the left, Tucker Lane finishes. And there are some very nice homes down in that area. They're not exclusive homes. There are homes in Dartmouth that I would say, definitely cost a lot more, different areas. This is in a nice area, but not a ritzy type area. $1.4 million. So, what's going to happen to the property values of all the other homes on Tucker Lane and that part of Colonial? You know it, and I know it. It's going to go up. It's going to rise. Now, the people that have lived on Tucker Lane for let's say, I've known Tucker Lane since 1999. My guess is there are a few homeowners that have been there even longer than I've known of the street. You're watching your property values go up, and now this house right down the end of the street sells for $1.4 million, and you're going, I'm getting killed here with property taxes. Because yours are going to go up. Your assessed value is going to go up because you are adjacent, contiguous to that property. You're going to get hammered. If you're paying $6,000 right now, what do you think you're going to pay? $6,500, $7,000 because of somebody else being able to sell a house for $1.4 million. Look, I'm not begrudging the folks for being able to get $1.4 million for their house. And congratulations to the people who can buy that house for $1.4 million. But now the people in the area who are just going by day, trying to do their business, they're stuck. They're going to end up with a higher property tax. And they might be able to turn around and say, well, I can sell my property for a lot more money now. And that might be true. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go that's not going to be as expensive, if not more expensive? And if it's more expensive, that means a higher property tax. 508-996-0500. Thank you. Hello. Hello.
How you doing?
I am. How are you?
Good. You kind of hit a note with about who can afford a house right now, and I don't know. I thought I did very well with my life and my job, and I can't afford a house now, and I made over $100,000 a year. I mean,
wow.
These houses are selling for brand new, $600,000, $700,000, and people are buying them. I mean, it's not my friends. It sounds like it's not your friends. Where's that money coming from?
Don't know, but I hate to think that they have a 40-year mortgage. Can you imagine? 40 years.
Oh, that's what it is. That's how they get a 40-year, 50-year mortgage. That's right. Yeah, I had a 30-year. But, yeah, I know my friends, I mean, I think I'm a middle-class kind of guy, you know, doing fairly well. And I'm like, I can't afford a house right now. I mean, and my friend bought a house for $250. They want to sell it. You know, somebody offered them $750. But where can they go? Like you say, where do you go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. So, you know, you're walking out with about $500,000. What are you going to do with $500,000? You going to buy something else? You going to buy an RV?
I guess those are going up too.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, believe me.
$300,000 for an RV.
I don't know where and where do they live? What city, town?
Yeah, I was just there the other day, just on the other side of Boston. The ones that have the trash strike.
Oh, gee.
I don't know the name.
There you go.
I was visiting them yesterday, and yeah, they said, "Where can we go?" And their house that they're getting $750 for is probably a $350,000 house down here now. But it's just if you can find one like that, but. I know. I mean, you go down to Plymouth, they got all these housing developments putting up 500 houses at a time, and they're all gone. They're sold out already. Where's the? I don't know where the money's coming. I know my friends, we're all well. We got new cars, we got nice houses, but we can't afford stuff like that. I don't know. Where's the money tree?
I don't know. Well, you remember there used to be a store called Money Tree?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where it is, but I can only imagine. Even if you've got a 40-year mortgage, you're still paying more than 35% of your take-home pay into a property. And if that's the case, then what do you have for clothing and food and all the other things that go with being a homeowner? You know, you got to mow the lawn and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, trucks now, what are those, 5, 6, 7-year loans, 5 years, 60 months, 72 months loans on a vehicle now at a $700-800 a month payment? That's my mortgage payment was that.
Thank you. That's what that is part of what I'm getting at. And Tucker Carlson is saying the same thing. We the people. I don't know that I certainly don't begrudge people making a lot of money, but what bothers me is the fact that we the folks, we can't turn around and do what we were able to do before. We're getting screwed over.
Yeah, they make a lot of money, but they're the class that we used to be. You know, the lifestyle that we used to be with what we made.
Yeah.
And this world is just getting. I'm glad I'm on my way out, not on my way in.
Well, so what you didn't tell me, what city or town are you talking about?
Oh, me. I live in Fairhaven, but my friends that had that house that was $250 and they got $750 for. I don't remember the town. I was just at their house yesterday too, and the one with the trash strike up around the other side of Boston.
Yeah, well, they're quite a few going through that trash strike, but I get it. I was more curious about you
anyway. That's the town they were living in. I don't remember the name of the town. That's unfortunate.
So, how are you looking at things? Are you thinking that you're going to retire and move somewhere else? You're going to retire in the house that you live in? They're going to take you out in a gurney? How are you viewing your final expenses?
I retired 3 years ago, and as soon as I retired, inflation went up to in the double digits, so I lost 7% of my money the day I retired.
There you go. So you had to go back out and work? I think that's what's going to happen.
Fortunately, my house was almost paid for. We have a fairly decent mortgage rate, but I started at like $700 back in the day, and now with taxes and insurance, I'm paying $1,300 a month now, which isn't bad, but considering what the mortgage used to be, and it's just taxes and insurance that's going up now that's making the prices come up.
Absolutely.
My pension's decent. My wife has a decent pension, so. But like I said, that's about all we owe. Is a little bit on the house and my truck. But
gotcha, man.
Goodness, where I was able to pay all my bills before I retired.
Go out and get a boat and go.
Yeah,
just
I like
keep
to
going.
move down into one of those states you're talking about. It's South Carolina or the Carolinas. But, it's tough. You have friends up here, family. Do you do that?
Well, I mean, people are doing it, and sometimes they're taking their families. Hey, thank you. I do appreciate the call.
Right, take care. Yeah, thanks for letting me babble a little bit.
That's all right. I like hearing people's stories. I really do. Thank you. 508-996-0500. I told you the part about folks have been moving to Mexico. I've been telling you this for the longest time. Well, now the Mexicans are revolting. There have been protests. I mean, I thought it was just a one-day type affair. People were upset. No, it's been going on for days. And in Mexico City, folks were so upset. They were, it started as a, I think most protests start out this way, just people marching in the street. They had signs that say, we can't afford to buy property. You're displacing us by coming down here. But then they started getting near a Starbucks, and they saw people sitting in the Starbucks being digital nomads. They had their laptop computer, they had their earpieces in their head, and they're doing whatever they do for work. And all of a sudden, somebody got mad, and they started throwing firecrackers. Well, the firecrackers then became chairs, and they started bashing in the storefront window. Now, imagine you're sitting there, minding your own business. You're paying your rent. You're paying for your food. You're doing everything the way that you should be doing. You don't realize that you are ruining other people's ecosystem. And you're hearing all of this, Yankee go home type stuff. And you say, what did I do wrong? Well, as it is, these folks don't realize it, but by paying the higher rent for the Airbnb or the apartment that they're renting for X amount of months, they're taking normally reasonable rental places away from other folks. And when that place becomes available, the price is higher. Sound familiar? Sound like what folks are fearing when the rents are going up down here because of the MBTA commuter rail coming in, and people thinking, well, I'll move down to this area because I've got a pretty easy commute back up to the city. Very familiar. They're worried about gentrification. You're worried about gentrification. And for you, it's a matter of where are you going to live? For them, it's a matter of where are they going to live. The thing is, you don't know who they are, so you don't really care about what's happening to them. The other side of the coin, just flip it a little. They don't know who you are, but they know that people are coming from the United States, some from Canada, for a better quality of life. A lot of us call it being an expat. But the folks in Mexico City in particular, and in Barcelona, which is Spain, and in Lisbon, Portugal, I'm just naming 3 places. There have been protests all over. There are protests going on in Bali. And if you don't know where Bali is, it's a part of Indonesia. So all the way around to the Pacific and I think part of the Indian Ocean too. They're calling Americans, and I don't want to just label us because we're not the only digital nomads, but they're calling the digital nomads that are coming into their backyard, they're calling us and them colonizers, not expats, colonizers. In Mexico, they've even got to the point of chanting, "Get out of Mexico." The president of Mexico, her name is Sheinbaum. She's saying, no, you don't want them to leave. You want them to be tourists, but we have to come up with a better way of handling it. She doesn't want the protesters out there because protesters equal not enough people coming down to see Mexico City and other parts of Mexico. There go tourism dollars. You don't want to lose the tourism dollars. And so the protesters are saying they want real estate regulation. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I mean, in my brain, I've got thoughts, but I'm not sure that what's kicking inside my brain is what they're thinking. I do know this one. They want rent control, rent stabilization, rent control, which is something that I fought against here in the Commonwealth, and I think that I would still be fighting against it today. We don't need controls over rent. We need people to be more viable. Maybe that means making more money. And the protesters, at least the ones in Mexico, are calling for limits on foreign property ownership, which, here in the United States, we don't have any controls over foreign property ownership. Would you like to see any of these things implemented? I had a caller, I believe, during hour number 1, who was talking about rent stabilization and how that would be good. I'm not quite sure that it would be good, but he seems to believe that rent stabilization would be good for us here. Would you favor that? Would you favor rent stabilization for the city of New Bedford? 508-996-0500. What about the surrounding towns? I admit rents are exorbitant. They're out of style. I see part of the problem with rents going up is that there are so many restrictions on who can buy property where. We have a lot of property in the United States, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that you can't build on it. It's swampland, or you got to protect the piping plover, or something like that. The Audubon Society says, oh, no, you can't build there. We've got toads running around in the water. And so the more land that you can't build on, that puts on a larger squeeze for buildable property. And since there isn't enough place to build, property prices just keep on going up and up and up and up. Hello.
Hello, Brian. How you doing?
I am. How are you?
Good. As far as stopping private ownership, there's multiple legislation that's been filed in many states throughout the United States to stop the Chinese from purchasing land because they got, the Chinese have a lot of paper money that we sent them, and they sent us their junk that we purchased. Not junk, but over the
I know
years.
what you mean, yeah.
And they got a lot of paper money, and now they're looking to get rid of that paper money by buying land in the United States. And so there's multiple, mostly Republicans, who have filed legislation to limit the property which Chinese people can own here in the United States. They're targeted towards the Chinese, especially around military bases where farmland and other property has been there as well.
So I haven't seen the bills. I'm going to ask you the question. Does that limit just the Chinese from doing that, or does it limit foreign property ownership?
I think they have to do it as foreign property ownership, or the bill would be thrown out. You can't single out a single person, a single group of people.
Yes, I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, you can't single that out. So I believe it, yes. But it's because of the China, like up in Maine, 'cause I'm familiar, my son lives up in Maine, and I believe the company is called Seven Dragons, but I'm not sure. They've been buying up a tremendous amount of land, and they're cutting trees, and they're pulping those trees into a pulp form. They're shipping it back to China to process it into paper, toilet paper, paper napkins, all that crap. And they're sending it back to us. But they're trying to regulate how much of the old paper mill land that was once owned by Maine, and they're doing that. But they're doing it all over the country. They're trying to buy up land, and there's been lots of legislation that's been filed, mostly by Republicans, to stop or slow this down. But it's hard because what the Chinese do is they hire or they form an American corporation with Americans ahead of the corporation to buy the land up, but it's all backed by Chinese money.
Wouldn't you do the same thing?
Yeah. Something, you wake up one morning and you got all this useless paper money from America, and you sold them all this crap, and you polluted your country building all this crap for America. Yeah, you want to get rid of the paper money. It's not worth anything. It's paper with dead presidents on it. I get it. I get they want, but I don't think it's a good idea to let Chinese-based companies or Chinese-owned companies to buy up the land next to military facilities as well. I think that's kind of you're dealing with fire there. So I support that legislation that limits.
But I mean, even by your own account, if you've got. There was a woman who called the show a couple of weeks ago who was stating that we have women from China coming here, having a baby, then they go back to China, raise the kid over there, and then when it's time for the kid to go to college, the kid goes to college here in the United States, which I have no problem. They're spending the money. But that kid's a U.S. citizen now. If that kid has backers from China who are going to foot the bill and the kid goes out and buys the property, what do you do then?
Yeah, you've asked $1 million question. It's not as simple as talk radio. A few minutes that you spend on talk radio could explain it. You can't explain it. It's a complicated issue, but I could see where Mexico is a little concerned about foreign investments, but we're doing the same thing. We're concerned about what we're spending here in America, what foreign countries are buying here in the country. So it's a two-way street. Everybody's concerned about outside influences. With that, Brian, have a great day, and I'll let you go.
You too. In listening to the caller, what really ran into my mind, especially when he said it's a two-way street, it sounds like it's one of those roundabouts where you can go get off here, get off there, more than a two-way street. And here's what I mean. Mexico is concerned about people being digital nomads and then coming in and raising the rental prices and basically subverting their culture. The same thing is happening in Portugal. and in Spain and in Bali. So that's why I say it's more than a two-way street. Same thing is happening here in the United States. And you try to come up with what seems to be a logical solution. Well, okay, yeah, we can't just stop the Chinese. This bill is based on what the Chinese are doing, but we can't just stop the Chinese from doing that. We got to make it so we're going to limit foreign and people from buying property in our country. Seems like a good idea. Until you get to the point, well, wait a minute. So if this person was born here and then went into business, they never have to leave. They could be Chinese American, American Chinese, however way you want to look at it. And they have family in China. And the family in China is some type of triad. And they decide, well, you know what? We need to invest this money. And so we've got Georgie, who's living in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's got a tech job, but he can't afford to buy a house. We'll buy Georgie a house and have him invest other money in other property so it looks very legitimate. And it would be legitimate. For one thing, Georgie lives in the United States. He was born in the United States. So doesn't that throw a monkey wrench into the legislation that state A or state B or state C, and you can't get the federal government to do it because the federal government, I mean, it would bop up against one of the things that we as a nation do. We allow people to invest in the United States of America, and we give them benefits for doing it. If you want to buy it, we've had President Trump. He's out there actively luring companies to either come back to the United States or foreign companies to come into the United States. It's an investment plan. And the same thing happens with real estate. These are transactions that go on all around the globe. There are certain countries that do not allow foreigners to invest in their real estate. Vietnam would be one of them. And there are others out there. But they don't stop you from buying, let's say, a condo. You can buy a condo, but you can't own the land that the condo was on. So we can try a lot of different programs here. I just wonder if they're really going to work, because if you try to stop one thing, there's always going to be smart people, whether they are criminal or non-criminal, that will try to come up with another way to do it. They will figure, excuse me, in our day, we called that Yankee ingenuity. Try to figure out the best way to do a deal. We've got a president who is a deal maker, who would figure out a way to do the deal. He's not the only one. So I don't know. You know, we can try to come up with rules about gentrification. We can try to say, okay, foreign ownership of property. No, you can't do that. I would go out and I would form a company to get around that. I don't mean to sound like a prick, but you know what? If that's what I want to do, I want to buy a property in the Bahamas, and the Bahamas have decided no more foreign investment. Now, they're nowhere near to doing anything like that. I would talk to a couple of Bahamians, and I would say, okay, let's form this company and do X, Y, Z to buy the property. And this is how we're going to take care of you. You may think that's cheating, but by the rules, it's not. So, I want to say good luck to these states that are trying to implement these laws. I get the reasoning, but I think we are long past that. I think we're inching closer and closer and closer to where we're going to be a borderless world. That is, it's not what I necessarily want. It's nothing that I'm totally against. But I think we're going to be like the European Union. They are the experiment. And I think you'll find there will be lots of countries kicking and screaming. You can see what's going on in the so-called Middle East right now with Israel doing what they're doing in Gaza and the West Bank and trying to take over Lebanon and Syria. This is all part of the whole thing. Whose land is going to be whose land? And eventually, the warring factions will stop. I don't know that I'm going to like what the end product is going to be. But I think that is where we are headed because people love mobility. We are in that age of digital nomadism. People can travel. We have people traveling into outer space, and we're going to have more people doing that. You may be looking there and sitting in your chair and saying, where the hell is he coming from? You might be dead when that happens, but your kids and your grandkids will not be. And people are going to say, well, maybe I want to go back to my roots, which might mean Cape Verde or Portugal or Ghana, wherever. That is what we're going to be seeing over the next 10, 15 years.
And in our school, we never have any delinquency problems. We never have any dropouts. We never have any disrespect for authority or disrespect for parents. We don't have any kind of juvenile delinquency. All of the things that the regular school system is complaining about, we aren't plagued with those same problems in our own school.
If people don't own things, they don't feel ownership of the country they're in.
Very well stated by Tucker Carlson. I like watching some of his pieces because he's doing things that I never saw him do with Fox News. Anyway, if you get the opportunity, check him out. He was speaking at the Turning Points convention that took place, I believe it was last weekend. 77 in Bourne, 82 in Fall River, 80 in New Bedford. What an absolutely gorgeous day. I can hardly wait to get out there. Nice little wind blowing at the back right now. Looks like an excellent beach day. At any rate, enjoy yourselves. We'll be back Monday for Barry, noon to 3, and then doing Brian's Beat after that. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Watch out for a few raindrops falling on your head. No biggie, though. Adios. Have an excellent time.
Traveling around from town to town. Sometimes I think I'll settle down, but I know I'd hunger to be free. Roving the only life for me. Adrift in the world is my friend. I'm traveling